Good morning. My name is Esther Bush. I am the president and CEO of the Urban League of Greater Pittsburgh and a founding member of the Every Student Succeeds Act Leadership Learning Community team. Launched in 2016, when the Every Student Succeeds Act was new, the ESSA Leadership Learning Community, ELLC, was formed by the Wallace Foundation, the Council of Chief State School Officers, the Council of Great City Schools, and the National Urban League. ELLC brings together superintendents, state chiefs, university personnel, and community advocate leaders in Pennsylvania and 10 other states to collaborate on policy and practice related to equity-centered school leadership and school improvement. The Pennsylvania team has as a focus on developing and supporting a diverse education pipeline for both teachers and leaders, with an emphasis on maximizing education opportunities for Pennsylvania students, especially those most in need. Today, I am proud to introduce this press conference to focus on the needs of the children of Pennsylvania and the opportunities for developing an approach to new funding sources in 3 areas. First, building lasting and equitable systems of teaching and learning, empirically shown to produce high levels of academic performance and achievement among all students. Specifically, we know that children taught in classrooms with a diversified teaching workforce fare better in life. Second, safely reopen schools for all students. And third, address pre- and post-pandemic unfinished learning. Today, we are pleased to have a distinguished panel of educators to speak on what is the current issue, what is working, and what can work, and who will provide a focus for a call to action. As previously stated, we know that children experience better academic performance when they are exposed to and taught by diverse teachers. Unfortunately, too many of Pennsylvania's school-age children are being deprived of this educational advantage. And yet, as you can see in the following graph, projected expenditures to address workforce diversity concerns neither reflect the magnitude nor the urgency necessary to amend the needs of the Commonwealth's most vulnerable population, our children. At a time when leaders across all sectors are searching for ways to build a more equitable American society, we can elect to do so while improving educational outcomes for all Pennsylvania children by using American Rescue Plan dollars to address greater teacher diversity in our state. I want to take this opportunity to challenge each individual and organization to renew and double their efforts to make a more diverse education pipeline a reality. Each of the sponsoring organizations welcomes your involvement and support, and we look forward to continuing to work together. All of Pennsylvania's students deserve nothing less. The highlighted graphic with districts where there are no teachers of color marked in red illustrates both the challenges as well as the opportunities for growth as we approach the movement to diversify the current education workforce in Pennsylvania. Our first speaker will provide some depth to this slide, as well as additional data to enlighten the issue. The diversity of our workforce is a powerful, unifying force for leaders across the Commonwealth. And we are joined by individuals today who continue to demonstrate their commitment to this cause. Our first speaker is Sharif El-Mekki, who represents the Center for Black Educator Development and the Pennsylvania Educator Diversity Consortium.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here with us today. My name is Sharif El-Mekki, and I'm honored to serve as the founder and CEO of the Center for Black Educator Development. Launched in June 2019, the Center for Black Educator Development is revolutionizing education by dramatically increasing the number of Black educators so that low-income Black and other disenfranchised students can reap the full benefits of a quality public education. We start our work with high school teacher apprentices. Now, in this first slide that highlights the student and teacher race and ethnicity in Pennsylvania in 2019-2020, this national data tells us that teachers of color make up roughly 20% of the workforce, compared to students of color who comprise over half, approximately 53% of the nation's public school enrollment. Unfortunately, Pennsylvania has one of the highest disparities between students and teachers of color in the nation. In Pennsylvania, teachers of color only comprise 6% of the teacher workforce in the entire state, while students of color represent roughly 36% of the public school student population. This disparity is also particularly problematic among male educators. 73% of all teachers across the Commonwealth are women. Men of color make up slightly more than 1% of all of Pennsylvania's teachers. In this second slide, we can see this change in the share of students and teachers of color in Pennsylvania from 2013 all the way through 2020. According to data from Research for Action, the percent of teachers of color in Pennsylvania only increased from 5.4% to 6%, while the percent of students of color increased from 30.5% to 35.8%. In 2019-2020, the share of students of color in Pennsylvania was approximately 6 times greater than the share of teachers of color, a disparity that is more than twice the national average. In this third slide, I want to really highlight that it's important to note that these racial disparities exist across all parts of the state. Throughout the 44 counties across Pennsylvania, only 3 counties, Philadelphia, Delaware, and Pike counties, have reported double-digit percentages of teachers of color in their teaching workforce. The unfortunate reality is that there remain 1,500 schools and 184 school districts across the Commonwealth that employ 0 teachers of color. And for the last 7 years, more than 1,000 public schools and 138 districts have employed only white teachers. In a dozen of these schools, 80% or more are students of color. That's as galling as it is glaring. Research has identified a number of ways in which schools and students benefit from the presence of teachers of color. For example, having at least 1 Black teacher early on reduces a Black student's likelihood of dropping out of school by up to 39%. Furthermore, when Black students have 2 Black elementary school teachers, they are 32% more likely to go to college. But the reality is that all students benefit from increased teacher diversity. They are better prepared to participate as informed and engaged citizens in an inclusive national civic culture and increasingly complex world. In this last slide, Pennsylvania's teacher pipeline, just like most teacher pipelines, begin at the K-12 level and extends through college, certification, and entrance into the teacher profession. The pipeline ends at teacher retention. It's important to examine all levels of Pennsylvania's teacher pipeline, as it loses potential teachers of color at each stage of the pipeline. While students of color make up 36% of Pennsylvania's public school enrollment, by the end of the pipeline, the state is only left with 6% of teachers of color. To address this leaky pipeline, this entire educational ecosystem, state government agencies, local education agencies, grassroots organizations, higher ed institutions, and nonprofits must work collectively and push for consortium so that we can build a stronger and more diverse pipeline together. We at the Center for Black Educator Development are working closely with a number of schools and districts to address this issue. I'm also thrilled to have the opportunity to work closely with our colleagues and partners in the Pennsylvania Educator Diversity Consortium, PEDC, to develop 4 toolkits focused on mentoring, recruitment, retention, and culturally relevant sustaining education, or CRSE. You can learn more about our culturally relevant sustaining education competencies by reaching out to Dr. Donna Marie Cole-Mallet. Thank you all so much for being here.
Dr. Tanya Garcia, who serves as Deputy Secretary of Higher Education for the Pennsylvania Department of Education.
Thank you, Esther. I'm honored to be here on behalf of Secretary of Education Noe Ortega, who sends his regards. We owe it to Esther Bush and the Urban League of Greater Pittsburgh, along with the ELLC, for birthing what eventually became Aspiring to Educate, one of the ways in which PDE is cultivating change. Sharif Al-Mekki, Dr. Donna Marie Cole-Mallet, and all of the members of the Pennsylvania Educator Diversity Consortium were instrumental in building the grassroots support for this movement, and for that, we remain grateful. The Federal American Rescue Plan for Education, known as ARP-ESSA, offers an incredible opportunity for schools and districts to invest in educator diversity efforts. Schools can use ARP-ESSA funds in a variety of ways, including recruiting and hiring educators of color, setting up mentoring programs for students of color to become teachers, improving employee benefits so that schools can increase their educator retention rates, and developing mentoring programs between seasoned and newer educators. PDE is working with educators and partners across the Commonwealth to support this work and the development of the competencies needed to provide culturally relevant and sustaining instruction. As educators, we know that to do their best, students must feel safe at school. A healthy and safe environment can help students thrive, and every student should be provided the opportunity to learn, free from discrimination, fear, or harassment. It's critically important that our educators have opportunities to strengthen and expand their awareness of how to approach students of varying backgrounds and different lived experiences, and ensure that they're offering all students the emotional safety to engage in a healthy learning environment. We appreciate the opportunity to join you in this important conversation to support students and school communities. And once again, PDE is grateful to all of its partners. Thank you.
I would like to introduce speakers who represent the 2 largest school districts in the Commonwealth. Chief Talent Officer Larissa Schambach from the School District of Philadelphia, followed by Superintendent Dr. Anthony Hamlet from Pittsburgh Public Schools.
Good morning, everyone. I am Larissa Schambach, the Chief Talent Officer for the School District of Philadelphia. I'm really honored to be sitting alongside this panel of individuals who place diversity of the educator workforce at the center of what they do. In the School District of Philadelphia, just as context, while almost 1/3 of our teachers identify as teachers of color, and almost 2/3 of our school leaders identify as leaders of color, we know that there is much more that we must do to have our educator demographics better reflect our student demographics. We see the numbers that we have currently because we've already rolled out certain programs to explicitly address our goals of educator diversity, such as teacher residency program that offers an alternate pathway into teaching. But this is an exciting time where there'll be additional resources available to us to strongly support and lift up our efforts of further increasing our teacher diversity in our workforce in Philadelphia. The district will be exploring and utilizing resources in a variety of ways, and I'm just going to give you a flavor of what some of that will look like. First, we are exploring how to tap more into the amazing people who already work in our district who want to become teachers for the School District of Philadelphia, such as our paraprofessionals. We will be working with our teachers union on what this will look like, but the goal at its heart is to provide those who already work with our students and who are already committed to our community with a clear pathway to becoming a teacher. Additionally, continuing our commitment to our own staff and to leader diversity, we are reinvesting in our educator workforce through programs such as our leader residency program to ensure our own staff have the development and opportunities they need to take the next step in their career with the district. Lastly, and perhaps most importantly, we know the most effective recruitment strategy is the retention of our great staff that we already have in the district. Therefore, we will be introducing new efforts, especially at our most struggling schools where we see the greatest turnover of teachers. These retention efforts will include additional supports for new teachers and the goal of providing more time for teachers to work collaboratively together. These efforts are not intended to be an exhaustive list, as we will continue to refine and expand this work as we listen to our own staff and what they need, as well as learn from other experts in this panel. But I believe we will continue to, as we work towards becoming an actively anti-racist organization, we will continue to uncover other areas that we need to explore, other barriers to remove in order to meet a goal for a diverse teaching workforce in the School District of Philadelphia. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Bush, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for having Pittsburgh Public Schools here represented. We enjoy the work we've done with the ELLC and also the Urban League as well. So we're excited to talk a little bit about what we're doing in Pittsburgh Public Schools around the teaching diversity pipeline that we're trying to develop. In Pittsburgh Public Schools, we have made it a priority to broaden teacher pipeline in order to produce a diverse, culturally competent, and effective workforce. Our HR team has been hard at work employing multiple strategies to deepen the diversity of our teacher pool, from advertising positions in national publications to attending job fairs locally and beyond our state's border. It becomes very clear that convincing teachers to relocate into our beautiful city was easier said than done. So we knew we had to look inside our school buildings to grow our own, which spurred the development of two promising programs we believe serve as great examples of what can be done through collaboration with the teachers union and with supplemental financial support. 1/6 of the district teachers are non-white, while more than half of our paraprofessionals are persons of color. So we created our Para to Teacher program to cultivate this untapped internal pipeline of future teachers. Our first cohort of 21 paraprofessionals are actively completing their master's degrees while employed by the district through a partnership with two local universities, Point Park and Carlow. With financial support from the Pittsburgh Foundation, Pittsburgh Federation of Teachers, and a grant from the Hines Endowments, which pays the district's portion to support the program, we attracted a diverse cohort of participants, of which 67% identify as Black and 33% identify as white. We have received positive reports from each university about the participation of our paraprofessionals, who are receiving the required supports needed to ensure their success. A second effort creates a pathway for high school students who have demonstrated a desire to teach. A memorandum of understanding with the Pittsburgh Federation of Teachers supports the hiring of graduates of Pittsburgh-Brashear's High School's Teaching Magnet program, following the successful completion of a state-approved teacher preparation program and after acquisition of the appropriate teaching certification. Students of the class of 2019 became the first cohort of prospective teachers who will be offered this opportunity. It is anticipated that this first cohort of students returning as teachers in our classroom will be upon us in the year of 2023-2024 school year. We are excited and we can't wait to accept and bring back those students to teach in a diverse workforce in Pittsburgh Public Schools. Thank you.
And to close, our last three speakers represent our institutions of higher education in Pennsylvania. We are grateful to each of them for their dedication and commitment to educator diversity in Pennsylvania. First is the president of Cheyney University, Aaron Walton, followed by the Dean of the College of Education at the University of Pittsburgh, Dr. Valerie Kimlock, and our final speaker, president of the Pennsylvania Association of Colleges and Teacher Educators, Dr. Gwen Price.
Thank you, Esther. Good morning, colleagues and members of the press. I'm Aaron Walton, president of Cheyney University. Many of you are aware that education has been a foundation of Cheyney University's existence since its inception as the nation's first and oldest historically Black college and university, founded in 1837. After decades of providing an education to elevate the economic and social status of a diverse population, our first class of state certified teachers graduated in 1921. Cheyney would go on to become an accredited state college in 1959, and then act as the oldest member of the Pennsylvania state system of higher education, formed in 1983. The university has long since graduated students who have successful careers teaching at all grade levels, becoming school principals, guidance counselors, superintendents, and those who hold other administrative positions in the education industry. Our largest insurgence of college graduates in the education field occurred between 2004 and 2011. During this period, and with grant funding, Cheyney was able to host programs called like Call Me Mr. that help recruit and retain Black males into the education pipeline. I believe you know one of our success stories from the program, Mr. Sharif who spoke earlier. Today, Cheyney University continues its vision to be the premier educational model for academic excellence, character development, and social responsibility within the American educational system. In 2018, we established the Institute for the Contemporary African American Experience to serve as a catalyst and facilitator in creating networks, fostering communications, and developing and testing solutions to contemporary issues among individuals, organizations, and communities working beyond the walls of the academic institution. In 2019, we were eager to be part of the conversations to discuss solutions to infuse the teacher diversity pipeline in the Commonwealth. Last summer, Cheyney University launched a 5-week summer program, Aspire to Educate. It's a boot camp to introduce high school students to a career in education. Using the pillars of A to E, recruitment, retention, mentorship, and most importantly, the foundation framework of the culturally relevant and sustaining education competencies, Cheyney worked with 21 students last year. 19 of them chose to matriculate and continue their education. They will all be enrolled or are still enrolled at the university, and at the end of the spring semester of 2021, had an average GPA of over 3.0. Programs like Call Me Mr. and A2E, Future Educators boot camps require additional resources and funding to enable institutions like Cheyney University to host and sustain them. The American Rescue Plan dollars gives us another opportunity to collaborate and invest in teacher diversity, to grow programs that will positively impact the educational workforce in the Commonwealth. Thank you.
Hi, I am Valerie Kenlock, the Renee and Richard Goldman Dean of the School of Education at the University of Pittsburgh. And it's an honor to offer a few brief words after President Walton, particularly because as a graduate of a historically Black college, Johnson C. Smith University in Charlotte, North Carolina, I know the value of our HBCUs. And as a proud graduate, I could not be more thrilled to be a partner with all of our partners here today. And so as Dean of the School of Education, I want to just offer a few brief words. And I want to start by highlighting parts of our new mission vision statement as a School of Education. In our mission vision for the Pitt School of Education, we say that we commit to igniting learning. We also talk about how we strive for well-being, how we commit to educational equity and justice, how we commit to student, family, and community success. We also commit to working for justice and disrupting and transforming inequitable educational structures here in the city, in the region, in the state. And my hope is that we do this work across the entire globe. So what does this mean when we talk about diversifying teacher education and the teacher education pipeline? Here, I have the proud opportunity to announce that I officially received word that our School of Education has officially been approved for a new 4-year undergraduate degree program in teaching and teacher education. And the university approved this just a week ago. Our new 4-year undergraduate teacher education program will have 6 tracks, 5 in secondary education, 7 through 12 content areas, to include math, social studies, science, global languages, and English education, and 1 in special education for grades pre-K through 12. Important to note here is that our program aims to offer students an undergraduate path to teacher certification through the Pennsylvania Department of Education, which will allow us to increase student enrollment and make teacher certification more accessible, more attractive, and more affordable for students who seek to enter into our program, and students who are students of color, students who are first-generation students, students from our very communities that we should be working directly with and cultivating. Connected to our new undergraduate degree program, we have been awarded a new $2 million grant from the McElhatton Foundation to help us reimagine, transform, and collaborate with communities, school districts, families, students, educators, and administrators to fundamentally improve teaching and teacher education here in this region and across the states. And finally, I will say that paired with that new McElhatton grant, we also have a small planning grant from the Hines Endowment to center on thinking about what it means to provide culturally relevant teaching experiences and culturally sustaining leadership to school districts across the region. And I could not be more excited about this opportunity because this is a commitment to truly diversifying our teaching and teacher education programs and our workforce right here in the city of Pittsburgh, but across the state of Pennsylvania, with implications for how we do this work across the nation. And I am just very thankful to be a partner on this initiative. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Valerie. The Pennsylvania Association of Colleges and Teacher Educators, Pakti, is a nonprofit association for all those in Pennsylvania who are engaged in the preparation and development of teachers, and we are proud to be a member of the PEDC. Diversifying the teacher pipeline begins with the responsible preparation of a diverse candidate pool within the institutions of higher education, such as those associated with Pakti. We must find ways to recruit a candidate that are representatives of the student population they will endeavor to serve, and this recruitment must start early, defining the pivotal role of educators in the development of young minds, redefining the public perception of education as a career, finding financial incentives and supports to make the pathway to becoming a teacher more enticing, and removing the barriers known to disproportionately keep underrepresented groups from entering the field. Once the teacher candidate is in the pipeline, it is then incumbent upon preparation programs to build curriculum interwoven with evidence-based practices, culturally responsive pedagogy, and diverse field experiences that engage candidates in the hard work and conversations that will prepare them for the challenges of today's classrooms in such a way that they will retain the field. This is only possible through working closely with our P-12 partners. We now, with the availability of the American Rescue Plan funds, have a unique opportunity to work more closely and more effectively than ever. Teacher preparation programs have been striving to engage their P-12 partners in this space for some time now. Several successful programs exist from the eastern side of the Commonwealth to the Route 79 corridor. Programs like Temple's Teacher Education Scholars Dual Enrollment Program and LaSalle's Gear Up program, to Edinburgh University's Borough Teach partnership with the area school district, Slippery Rock's Rock Teach program with Brashear High School, and CalU's initiative to start a Build a Teacher program. Pakti urges all teacher preparation programs to find innovative ways to tap into ARP funds through new, as well as already established partnerships with school districts throughout the Commonwealth. Partnerships built around the common goal to recruit, prepare, and retain a diverse educator workforce that will positively impact the learning of all future K-12 students in Pennsylvania. Thank you.
Thank you all for that insightful information. We've learned a great deal about our efforts and challenges. I am excited about our possible solutions. I want to take this opportunity to challenge each of the individuals and organizations to renew and double their efforts to make a more diverse education pipeline a reality. Each of the sponsoring organizations welcome your involvement and support, and we look forward to continuing to work together. All of Pennsylvania's students deserve nothing less. If you want to learn more about ways to support teacher diversity in Pennsylvania and in creating culturally relevant and sustaining educators, then you can reach out to the Pennsylvania Educator Diversity Consortium and also contact Dr. Donna Marie Cole Mallet, who is a press contact on the advisory you all received. You will be able to join a contingent of hundreds of Pennsylvania educators who are currently doing this work and who can support your efforts as well. See the PEDC website link in the chat. Thank you to Cheyney University for hosting us today. It is greatly appreciated. It should be noted that the Pennsylvania ELLC members include Education Secretary Noe Ortega, Superintendents Dr. Height and Dr. Hamlet, as well as several of each of their senior staff members. Additionally, ELLC is an active partner with the Pennsylvania Educator Diversity Consortium. We invite the press to ask any of our panelists questions.
Hi, good morning. My name is Lauren Moffitt. I work in Cheyney University's Public Relations Office. I will be assisting with the Q&A portion of this webinar. If you have any questions you'd like to ask the panelists, please raise your hand using the Zoom function, and I'll call on you, allow you to speak, but please unmute your audio and introduce yourself in your outlet, and then ask your question. You may also place questions in the chat at any time. And we did have one question in the chat earlier from Larry Miller of Seisler. From grade school through junior high, I'm going to apologize, as I get the panelists back up here. From grade school through junior high, most of my teachers were Black. In high school, about half of them were Black. What happened to cause the lack of Black teachers?
Can I ask Sharif if he would respond to that question?
Sure. Thank you, Larry. Good to hear from you. I think what you experience is similar to a lot of people across the state, and there are a variety of reasons why that can be. It can be anything from biases in recruitment and placement of talent. It can be from the lack of attention to teacher retention. It can be disparities within certification programs. There's a myriad of reasons why something like that could happen. And as you saw from the graphs from the year 2000, there's been a plummeting of diverse teachers across our state.
Thank you, Sharif. You're welcome to put questions in the chat or raise your hand and we'll call on you.
And while we're waiting for additional questions, let me, Gwen, ask you, can you say more about the ways institutions of higher education can partner with school districts to support teacher diversity?
Absolutely. There are so many programs that have been in the thought process stage across the state. I know in institutions of higher education, teacher preparation programs have been looking for ways to recruit the diverse teacher candidate pool for quite some time. Anything from the state-supported teacher residency programs, right through some of the things that I mentioned yesterday or earlier in terms of the Gear Up programs or the Thorough Teach programs, partnering with school districts to try and grow your own, which is I heard from several different speakers today. I was so happy to hear about some of the efforts that are happening, Philly and Pittsburgh, and I know that they're also happening other places across the state. We just need school districts to partner with us, try and find a variety of institutions of higher ed to partner with, so that we can engage as many audiences as possible as we try and strive for towards the same goal with these school districts.
Thank you very much. Lauren, was there another question there in the chat?
Yes, thank you, Esther. Tori Gates of Radio PA Network has put the question. This is a question for any of the panel who would like to take it. I was surprised to see the lack of non-white teachers across so much of the state. How can inroads be made in these districts? And they added the typo. How can inroads be made in these districts?
Is there anyone who would like to respond to that, or I will call on you? Yes.
I think that part of the solution lies in the recruitment process, particularly of students across the state. We have a concerted effort to recruit students from areas within the state that have not traditionally sent students to Cheney. And I think it's all about collaboration and coordination. So as we recruit more students from various parts of the state, it gives us an opportunity to begin conversations with school administrators, counselors, et cetera. And that begins to open up a dialogue that will hopefully lead to a greater representation of minorities in those districts that are outside some of our metropolitan areas, such as Philadelphia and Pittsburgh.
Thank you, President Walton. I thought I saw another speaker that wanted to respond.
I'm sorry.
Yes, Dr. Hamlet.
And coming from the other side also, realizing, now I have to tell this group that we can't do it alone as a school district or as a university as well. And I say that question with this in mind. We can create all the great programs, support services, teacher preparation program, new teacher support programs. However, we need to work with our city as well, because we're trying to attract diverse populations, and the majority of the state is not diverse. And so why would a diverse teacher potential teacher move to a certain area with no support systems in place. So we have to embrace our community. We have to embrace our city as we create support structures for diverse teachers to come into our school district. So I just want to put that in the space as well.
Absolutely, thank you. Is there anyone else that wants to respond to that before we move to the next question? Yes.
I would be delighted to. Thank you so much. This is a perennial issue in terms of increasing collaborations among local, regional, and state organizations and state agencies and colleges and universities across the nation. Everyone needs to play a part in, enticing individuals to enter the educator profession. And Pennsylvania is, definitely one of the states that, is joining every other state in the nation in how to diversify the educator workforce. And so what I wanted to add to, President Walton's and Dr. Hamlet's suggestions is that local education agencies, school districts, they not only play a role in educating all of our learners, they're also, very much a part of our local economies, right? And so they have the power to not only identify, but also recruit and hire individuals from different races and ethnicities to really increase that intercultural awareness and knowledge that all of us need to thrive in our 21st century knowledge and service economy. And so I'm so delighted to hear that progress is already being made in certain areas of our state. And I would like to continue to learn more so that we can, help advance and support those efforts.
Thank you so much.
And
Lauren, I believe, no, I'm sorry,
that?
Go ahead, please.
Just one quick point here. I really appreciate the comments that we've heard so far. And I just want to also stress the retention and support piece even more, because
Yes.
we oftentimes start with a conversation about how do we recruit more people in, particularly people of color. And I think the recruitment is really important. Essential in this conversation is also how do we retain and always continue to provide support structures, because that retention piece is not just when someone says I'm leaving for a different opportunity. That retention piece is we value people so much that before they can even consider leaving, we have provided supports for them to be successful, to both survive and thrive within this environment. And in order for us to do that, collaboration that is sustainable, that is not just for a one-time opportunity, but sustains itself, I think is also really important for different institutions of higher education, school districts, community partners, and families to be a part of this larger conversation. So I wanted to also add that piece in.
That's very critical, and everybody is shaking their head in support. Is there anyone else before we move on? Because that really, the question is really the crux of why we're having this conversation today. So many responses are quite appropriate. Is there anyone else before we move on? Thank you. Lauren, you want to share the next question that came up in the chat, please?
Of course. I want to acknowledge, Cynthia, I do see your hand. We're going to go to you next after Arthur Mitchell's question. If this issue is a state level priority, what is the state doing to make seeking a teaching career affordable for more candidates? PA has among the highest public education costs in the country.
Larissa or Tanya, you want to respond to that, please?
Absolutely. And thank you so much, Mr. Mitchell, for raising that question. It is certainly a state level priority in order to make not only a teaching and leader post-secondary program of study more affordable, but we also have a much larger role to play from a statewide perspective in helping individuals learn about other ways other than, through student loans from the federal government, how to finance their post-secondary educations. We have not done a good enough job in communicating, to address your what you brought up about the student loan debt burden. We know that Pennsylvania graduates of four-year institutions are leaving with almost $40,000 in student loan debt, but many students aren't aware of all of the financial aid options that are available in order to make college more affordable. And so that is really one of my priorities as PDE engages with the State Board of Education, Council of Higher Education, as we seek to update the master plan for higher education, which is now 15 years old. And so increasing college affordability for all Commonwealth learners is definitely a strategic priority that we must strive to meet. And so I'll leave my comment there at that. There's a lot more going on at the state level, but helping individuals understand ways in which they can finance their post-secondary educations without leaving with mountains of debt is certainly one critical lever that we need to make more understandable and clearer as people pursue post-secondary credentials.
Thank you for that response. And while it was directed to the state, is there any other panelist that wants to respond?
I would just add that at the Center for Black Educator Development, we're really proud to partner with the United Negro College Fund to begin raising last dollar scholarships, as well as funding to provide retention bonuses for teachers in their first 4 years of teaching. And so we are launching that later on this fall. We expect to have between 10 and 13 students who've gone through our teacher apprenticeship program, the Freedom Schools Literacy Academy, which makes them eligible at that point to apply to be part of this fellowship in partnership with UNCF. And I would also say, the Octavius Catto Scholarship that provides funding through the Mayor's Office of Education to students who are attending CCP. I think combination of these things, as well as dual enrollment, which can provide, free college courses and credits in education before high school students graduate. All of these are just part of the solution, and 100% agree that we have to find other ways to reduce the cost so that folks who are committing to the education of our children, our future, do not leave college with debt.
Thank you so much. And I like the sound of the Mayor's Office of Education. I have to look into that. Thank you so much. Lauren, do we have another question for the chat, please?
Esther, I also want to comment on that.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, we don't want to leave out the Thurgood Marshall Foundation either, along with UNCF, because they have been extremely supportive, and Cheney is one of the Thurgood Marshall schools, and we work collaboratively with Thurgood Marshall and with United Negro College Fund. So part of the solution is making our students aware of all the scholarship opportunities that exist, and to be very intentional in terms of working directly with students on that particular issue. So it's an engagement that has to happen at the university level as well as the state level in terms of increased funding for education in the state of Pennsylvania. There has not been the level of investment in the state schools as perhaps we need to make us more competitive.
Thank you very much. Lauren, I believe we're ready for the next question.
Thank you, Esther. I'm going to go back to Cynthia Falls. I'm going to allow you to unmute yourself and ask the question you had previously.
Hello, everyone. My name is Cindy Falls. Hi, Dr. Hamlet. And I am a proud retired career and technical education teacher from the Pittsburgh Public Schools, as well as presently I am on the school board as a director for District 7, which is in the South Hills. So my heart goes, of course, out to such topics as you all are dealing with today. But one of the things that I wanted to say is everything that we talk about as far as careers, teaching has not been considered in that pathway in career and technical education. And what's sad about that is that those students who go through the career and technical education program, they do have direction, they do have guidance, they do have discipline, we have very successful career and technical education programs in Pittsburgh. And so we're working very hard to try to get teaching into that career and technical education, and of course working with the state. We're very fortunate to have Miss Angie Mike as the director of CTE, who is very, very outgoing and trying more to capture more students of color into a lot of our career and technical education programs, as well as the academic line is, too. So I just wanted to have that put out there, because as a liaison of the Pittsburgh Public School Board to career and technical education, I see the value. And we must, as we are trying to do in Pittsburgh, start pre-K, K with all the careers. Never just wait till high school. That's too late. We have to start very, very young. So if we begin to let kids know how teaching can be fun, teaching can be all that, we can start that very young and get this in the career and technical education programs. And I guarantee you, we will have even more success. Thank you.
And thank you for sharing that. Any reflection from her statement, from the panelists? Okay, let's move on. Lauren, we have another question from the chat.
Yes, Fred Brown from the Forbes Funds put in the chat, how can this effort account for the cultures within the schools that must be considered to support such an important effort? Hiring minority teachers are important, however, keeping them is equally important.
Sharif, you're nodding your head, so you can go first.
Well, I mean, Dean Valerie definitely touched on this. I think this is one of the main reasons that the Pennsylvania Educator Diversity Consortium wanted to focus on the retention toolkit as part of the 4 toolkits that we are offering open source to districts and schools. We targeted the retention toolkit for principal supervisors as well as leadership teams, because we know it's not a single entity. It's not just a principal, it's not just a superintendent or HR department, it is the entire ecosystem that has to look at retention as a prerequisite, a retention plan, a strong one, as a prerequisite for recruitment. As Dean Valerie mentioned, like, you just can't recruit. We have too many districts talking about recruitment without a single thought about what are the conditions, the working conditions that teachers of color are subjected to. What are the places and the culture of the ecosystem? Is it welcoming? Is it supportive? And I put in the chat, if not, these teachers of color will come in the front door and leave out of the back door because of how they experience, how they're received, and how they're supported. So absolutely, retention is the best recruitment plan is an equally strong retention plan.
I just want to underscore that, and our presenters today absolutely have shared information, but I will tell you that oh my goodness, there is so much research out there now, so many papers that have been written that underscores the statements that have been made. We need to read, understand, embrace, and implement these things in our schools because they work. And it's critically important. In a program that I participated in not too long ago, a Black male educator said, I want to be an educator, not just a disciplinarian, because I'm the only African-American teacher in my school. And so these things become extremely critical. Lauren, would you give us another question, please?
Yes. Andrew Cole is going to close out our session here with our last question. How can the federal funds be allocated to help make change possible and improve the teacher and leader diversity?
Dr. Hamlet, I'm going to ask you to start with that.
He looks like he's having a connection issue.
Okay, Dr. Hamlet, can you,
Yeah.
there he is.
Sorry,
Thank you.
I froze for a second. Technology fails us sometimes, but
Sometimes.
yes, I would say let's speak to or look at some of the things that I discussed as well. When it comes to supporting your teacher or actually developing a teacher magnet program, but also going back to what Ms. Falls says, who has been a staunch supporter of diversity and also including the teaching profession into the CTE continuum, which is important as well, as we get more dollars to support growing our teachers and growing our own. But one of the things we need to think about as well when it comes to that is our hiring practices in the seat. And I think the previous question before this one was partly about the hiring practices in the organization. And from my seat and from the leaders, I know our board of directors are staunch supporters of diversity. And so from my seat as the administrator, head administrator, I want to make sure that we talk about diversity and inclusion and equity in everything that we do. And it's not a set aside or something that we do for those individuals. This is something that we do systemically in every decision point we make, in every approach we have to supporting our teachers as they support improve student outcomes for our students. So I think some of those things are very, very important, and also retention. We can't touch upon enough the part about retention, and and I don't want to rock the boat a little bit also, but also we need to look at partly our union contracts as well. And if we begin to bring young diverse teachers in, and then our population begins to shift, who's going to go first? Those particular teachers. So we need to look at our tenure and how we do that as well. And I can tell you the PFT, working with the president, Nina Viscaitis, she is highly on board with that. And we have collaborative conversations about how this can change the climate and culture of Pittsburgh Public Schools, but also be a beacon as an example for other districts as well to move forward.
Thank you so much, because everything you said is so on point for this conversation and for this issue. I know we have run out of time. That was our last question. I want to thank Cheney and Dr. Walton, Mr. Walton, for assisting us to put this press conference on today. Our panel was awesome and appropriate. Let us understand that the issue of diversity in our schools, in everything that we do throughout the state of Pennsylvania and this country, the issue of equity, the issue of race and culture should not be something different. It should be something that is a part of what we do every single day. Our students deserve to have a clear understanding of what it is like to be a full, equitable American. And education is key to how we move forward. Again, I want to thank Cheney for hosting us. I want to thank each of our panelists that were so important. Your voices makes this whole effort worthwhile, and we need you to continue. The media, as well as the other participants, thank you so much for joining us today, and please have a good rest of your afternoon. Thank you. Ooh.